The night of the charity gala, my ex-husband stood on stage in front of 300 donors and said my name into the microphone like a joke. My ex-wife thinks she can coach elite gymnasts. She couldn't even keep our family together. The room laughed politely. I sat in the back, in a dress I'd bought secondhand, and I didn't flinch. Because in my purse was an envelope that was about to end his career in front of every single person in that ballroom. My name is Sophia Reyes. I'm 41 years old, and 8 years ago I was the head coach of one of the top gymnastics programs in the state. My ex-husband Marcus was the program's executive director. On paper, we ran it together. In reality, I built it, and he took the credit for every ribbon we ever cut. To understand what happened at that gala, you have to go back to the beginning. I started as a gymnast myself, back when my knees still let me tumble. A career-ending injury at 19 put me on the sidelines, but it didn't take the sport out of me. I became a coach instead, and within a decade, I was running a non-profit gym that trained kids who couldn't afford private lessons anywhere else. Kids from trailer parks and shelters and foster homes. Kids nobody else was looking at. Marcus came into the picture through a donor connection. Charming, well-dressed, good at shaking hands in rooms full of money. We fell in love fast, married faster, and he became the public face of the organization while I stayed on the gym floor, spotting backhand springs and taping ankles at midnight before regional meets. For 6 years, that division of labor felt fine. I didn't need the spotlight. I needed the kids to land their routines and believe in themselves. Marcus needed the applause. It worked until it didn't. The first sign something was wrong came when I found a second set of financial records. Not the ones I helped prepare for our board. A different spreadsheet, hidden in a folder labeled Personal Do Not Open, on a laptop he'd left charging in the kitchen. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for a permission slip template. What I found instead were donation totals that didn't match what our accountant reported to the state. I didn't say anything right away. I started paying attention instead. Small things stacked up fast once I was looking. Marcus took solo meetings with major donors that never made it onto the shared calendar. He started talking about restructuring the nonprofit into something he called a more sustainable model. He stopped introducing me at events as the head coach and started introducing me, when he introduced me at all, as my wife, who helps out with the kids. Helps out. 6 years of 18-hour days, and I helped out. Then one afternoon, I overheard him on the phone with a lawyer. We just need the coaching contract restructured before the merger goes through. Sophia doesn't need to know the details yet. My stomach dropped. There was no merger anyone had told me about. There was no restructuring anyone had discussed with the board, or with me. The person who'd built the program from 4 kids in a rented church basement to 60 athletes and 2 state champions. That night, I didn't confront him. I sat in my truck in the gym parking lot until almost 2 a.m., and I made a decision. If he was planning something behind my back, I wasn't going to walk in unarmed. The next morning, I called an old friend from college who'd become a forensic accountant. Her name was Denise. I brought her every bank statement, every grant application, every fundraising report I could get my hands on, going back 3 years. It took her 6 weeks of quiet digging. What she found made my hands shake the first time I read it. Marcus had been quietly diverting a percentage of major donations into a shell consulting company he'd registered under his mother's maiden name. Nearly $200,000 over 3 years, disguised as administrative and outreach services. Money that was supposed to pay for leotards, travel to national qualifiers, and scholarships for kids whose families couldn't afford the entry fees. Money donors believed was going directly to children. I sat with that information for 2 weeks before I did anything. Not because I was scared of him, because I wanted to be completely sure before I burned everything down. Denise helped me build a clean, simple paper trail. Bank transfers side by side with grant reports. Dates that matched, signatures that matched. No speculation, no accusations, just documents that spoke entirely for themselves. The charity gala was scheduled for the following month, our biggest fundraiser of the year, the one where Marcus would stand on stage and thank donors for believing in our mission. I requested a seat at a back table under my maiden name. He didn't even notice I was there until the speeches started. He opened with jokes, then he opened with me. My ex-wife thinks she can coach elite gymnasts. She couldn't even keep our family together. The room laughed the polite laugh rich people give when they're not sure if it's actually funny. I smiled and let him finish. Then I stood up. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. I walked to the small standing microphone near the silent auction table, the one meant for donor testimonials, and I asked the MC for 30 seconds. My name is Sophia Reyes, I said. I coached every athlete whose photo is on the screen behind Marcus right now. I want to thank this room for something important. Your generosity has changed real lives. 60 kids currently train because of the money you've given this organization. Marcus was still smiling, unsure where this was going. Which is why, I continued, I think you deserve to know exactly where that money has actually gone. I nodded to Denise, sitting at a laptop connected to the ballroom's projector, and the screen behind Marcus changed from photos of smiling gymnasts to a single spreadsheet. The room went completely silent. I walked the donors through it, calmly, the same way I'd walk a nervous 9-year-old through her first vault. Here's the donation you gave in March. Here's the shell company it moved to 11 days later. Here's the grant report claiming that same money funded travel to nationals. Here's the flight records showing no team traveled that month at all. Marcus's face had gone the color of chalk. His mouth opened, then closed. His attorney, seated at the head table for the exact photo op moment that had now turned into evidence, was already reaching for his phone. I'm not telling you this to embarrass anyone, I said, looking out at the donors, not at Marcus. I'm telling you because these kids deserve donors who know the truth, and because I refuse to let one more child lose a scholarship to a fake consulting invoice. A woman near the front, one of our largest donors, stood up first. Is this documented? Actually documented? Every page, I said. Copies are with the State Attorney General's office as of this morning. The board chair, a soft-spoken retired judge, stood and quietly asked Marcus to step outside with him. He didn't come back into the ballroom that night. Within 3 months, Marcus was formally removed from the organization. The state opened an investigation into the missing funds. I was voted in as executive director by a unanimous board decision, the same board that, 6 months earlier, hadn't known my last name. We recovered about 60% of the missing money through a settlement. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to fund 4 full scholarships for kids who'd been on the waiting list for over a year. I named the scholarship fund after the first gymnast I ever coached, a girl who trained on a torn mat in a church basement and went on to a full college scholarship of her own. People sometimes ask if I feel vindicated. Honestly, I don't think about Marcus much anymore. What I think about is the 12-year-old who walked into my gym last week, the one who told me she'd never had new grips before, and watching her eyes when I handed her a pair, paid for by donors who now actually know exactly where their money goes. I didn't build that gym to prove Marcus wrong. I built it long before I even knew who he really was. That gala didn't give me anything I didn't already have. It just made sure everyone else could finally see it too.